Anita Engles is the executive director
Yes.
of the American Bookbinders Museum in San Francisco, California. Welcome to the Bibliophile.
Oh, thank you.
So why should the book-loving literary tourist come to your museum?
Well, it is the only one in North America, so they're going to have to go an awful long way to find another one. It's unique. The story that we tell is completely unique because nobody else is telling it. There are other places that have, bookbinding equipment or bookbinding historical stuff, but not as a museum and not as a tour. So if you're not already an aficionado, you may not really grasp it. So I think what we do really well is we break it down and make it accessible, and we talk not only about the process, but we talk about the human experience associated with that process. A lot of people who read books, they've never really thought about what it took to get that physical object into their hands. And I think a lot of people will be surprised. I think they'll be surprised at the process. It's a very involved technical process. Like one of the things we say in our tour is that this was the original IT. The book was a container, it contained information. This was the original information technology, right? And nobody would think of a book that way today. But, back a long time ago, this was state of the art. This was it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like one of the most successful pieces of technology ever invented.
Exactly. Right. And it's lasted a long time. It's still here. I expect it will stay here for a good long time.
Yeah.
Hopefully forever. Honestly, I hope that it sticks around forever. And, so I think it gives people, I think the way we try to tell it is we don't just give them a dry, step 1, step 2, step 3.
Mm-hmm.
We give them the story and, how did people do this and who were the people that do it and what was their socioeconomic place in the world and, what kind of a lifestyle did they have and what did that mean, to them and to the process that they were working in, and then the evolution of that. It was an evolutionary process, even,
mm-hmm.
During the, 15 so centuries of pure hand binding, there were refinements going on. They were,
mm-hmm.
They were learning from each other. They were people would travel. They would bring things home with them, and they'd have those aha moments that would change things for them. The fact that we span that, or the original hand process that really probably came into its vogue in the Middle Ages, up until the Industrial Revolution, where it just completely changed that whole process and made books, available to everybody, whereas before they weren't. It's an interesting story that I think a lot of people don't really think about. We've all always had books. We don't think about it. We take it for granted. So I really think that after you've been through the tour, you just never really look at a book the same way again.
Yeah.
You start looking at how is it constructed. That's the spine and the different technicalities about producing that book. A cheap paperback versus a beautifully constructed artisanal book. They're still books. They still have similarities.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you have a greater appreciation for the technology and the craft of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to a lot of people. That's the feedback that we get from people after they've left. So.
Yeah, no, it was a great tour that I went on. Coming in the door, I thought, okay, I'm going to learn about the covers of the book and how it's decorated, but no, we're getting the actual string,
the materials, the tools,
exactly, yeah,
the physical effort it takes. The beating hammer is not light.
Yeah, you've got all the lovely old tools and all of the equipment here to show us
how they did it before.
Yeah,
it is different today. We don't have any of the digital printing stuff, and the mass production of books today is well beyond what we have on the floor because we only go up into the early 20th century. We also just don't have room for it.
But in fact, some of this equipment, there's only a few of them in the whole world.
That's right.
That's impressive.
Right. The pen ruler there's only 3 or 4 of them out there, and nobody seems to have one that's actually working. And that's sad. Ours could be working, but we just need funding to get it back operational. But wouldn't that be great if we had the funding to get it up and running, and people who would want to do their own artisanal rule pages for a book that they're going to make,
mm-hmm.
then they can come here and do that. We'll get there, but we're just not there yet.
Yeah, when was the museum established?
We're about 2.5 years old. So we're
very
relatively new.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're in a neighborhood that is full of museums.
Are you?
Well,
Okay.
MoMA's over here, and we've got the MOAD, and we've got the Children's Creativity Museum, and there's the Jewish Heritage. I mean, there's just this area, sort of south of Market, Yerba Buena, is just rich with museums. So we're just one of many, right? But we're a distinctly different museum from everyone else.
And how is it funded then?
A couple of things. Well, private donation, which we're always trying to grow. We rent the place out for events, which is our best revenue source at the moment. And we also, we get revenue from tours, the bookshop, and maybe little workshops and things like that. We're trying to grow the workshops and lectures, so that's still very much a growth opportunity for us. Yeah, so those are really our three areas that we focus on.
You've got a collection of some beautiful bindings here,
We
too.
do, yes, we do. We have a special collection, that was archival materials. Most of it's focused on bookbinding. It's, bookbinding history, how to do bookbinding, past, present, about the tools.
The reference.
Yes, as a reference library.
But you do have examples of beautiful
We
old...
do. We have a very nice collection of publishers' bindings that was donated to us. We have about 450 volumes. They span from 1830 to 1950. And just really beautiful examples of different designers like Margaret Armstrong. The common unifying theme is that they are publishers' bindings. So
What does that mean, they're publishers' binding?
the publishers, there's none of them were handmade. They were all basically mass-produced by publishers. And yet, publishers had figured out that this was the way to attract buyers, by making a beautiful cover.
Yeah, it's kind of the precursor to the dust jacket.
Yeah. Well, and so if you have a really nice cover, then how do you keep the cover protected,
Yeah,
right? You put a
right.
dust jacket on
Yeah.
it. So.
And so these books are available and accessible to the general public, or?
By special request. If somebody wants to come in and look at them, they can request to see them and look at them. They're only available on site. We don't lend any of that out. But if you can access our entire collection off of our website. There is a view button, and you can look for things. Like the equipment that we have is on there. The publisher's bindings are on there. Our bookbinding reference manuals are all on there. So if somebody is interested in, if they find something in that collection that they would like to come in and look at because they're doing some kind of research.
Or just a book lover who wants to come in and then pick the book up.
Right, just to
That's
see
okay.
it, just to see what it's like, yeah. Yeah, we've got a couple of, I think, pretty unique things to offer somebody. We're not a gigantic museum, but I think we've got a wealth of things to offer people. We've got the temporary exhibits that we're doing that we run periodically. So those change. There's a reason to come back to check out the new exhibit.
These tours that you offer, how long do they last, and how often do you have them?
So we run 2 tours a day. We have one at 11 and one at 2, docent-led.
Mm-hmm.
They're anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. A lot of it depends on who's here. Some people have a lot of questions, and it's not unheard of a tour going over the hour and a half because people just get really fascinated, and that's fine. We're happy to give them as much information as they're willing to take. So that's 5 days a week, Tuesday through Saturday, and we are currently working on self-guided tours, which is something that we have not been able to do in the past. We don't have the artifacts, signage, documentation, so that if you were to come in without a docent and you were to walk around, you probably wouldn't get a whole lot from it. And that's why the docent-led tour is so great. But we're developing a self-guided tour so that those people who just can't make it to a docent-led tour, they still have a reason to come, and they'll have something they can take away with them.
We talked a bit about the equipment that you have here that's unique. Where did you get all the equipment from?
From a lot of different sources. Most of them people who were binders, people who had binderies and they had this old equipment, they had collected it themselves. Some of it is, was given to us, donated to us, so it's permanent. Some of it is on loan to us. So a lot of different donors.
Why did the museum set up in the first place? Was it someone's idea? Whose idea
It was. There was the founder was a binder himself, and he got really fascinated with the historical aspect of binding.
What was his name?
His name was Tim James.
Mm-hmm.
And he, he just started collecting things. He started, he talked to a lot of other binders, and some of the other binders gave him things to add to the collection.
He's from San Francisco?
Yeah, he's from this area, the Bay Area.
Okay.
He was able to get some donors to back him and develop the library. Originally started as really just, I think, a hobby. Next to his bindery, he had he started collecting stuff, putting it in there, and people could come by appointment, and he'd tell them about the machines, and so a couple of years ago, the founder and some of the people that were interested in it, they got together and they said, well, let's do this for real. Let's make something of this. So they got the backing, and we're set up in this beautiful space.
Yeah, it is beautiful, isn't it? It's got high ceiling. It's kind of like must be an old warehouse.
Yeah, I believe it was an old sort of like light manufacturing machinist type shop. It's been extensively renovated.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's with concrete walls and concrete floors that are painted, and it's very artsy.
Yeah, they did a really nice job when they redid it. So here we are, still really in our infancy.
Yeah.
Still looking to grow our funding base, looking to grow our attendance base. People that are just interested in what we do. We get a lot of book lovers that come here. Just because they're interested in the book. Mm-hmm. We do get people who are hand bookbinders. They're either professionals or amateurs, and we get some people who are binders, they're maybe retired and they just want to see what we've got. Mm-hmm. So we get this sort of broad section of people that come through. But by and large, when we ask people, why did you come here, and they say, well, I just really love books, and I just want to learn more.
And what's your mission then? Like, what do you want to? What's your 5-year plan? What do you want to tell the world?
So the mission is really to preserve and tell that story of the craft and science of bookbinding for future generations, so that there is an understanding of the physical construction of a book. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's the overriding mission.
So that the book continues to be made
and relevant, and not just something that you take for granted, but to understand that there was a true craft behind it.
Yeah.
If you've only ever looked at maybe paperbacks, then maybe it doesn't make as much sense. But if you look at any hardcover book, mm-hmm. there's a lot of technology in putting that together.
Yeah, a lot of labor involved too.
Yes.
It used to be anyway.
Right.
Now it's mechanized, but boy, was there a lot
Still
of labor.
a lot of technology to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think people who are just curious, you have people who have just a real sort of technical engineering bend as well. Like they like to put things together and take things apart and understand how things were made.
Yeah.
So that's a big...
Lift up the hood and...
Exactly, yeah.
Check out the engine.
And then it's a part of our history.
Mm-hmm.
So it is, it's a history to keep alive and to...
Well, especially San Francisco.
Exactly.
I guess you're the West Coast publishing capital.
So it makes sense to be here. We try to make it really fun for people when they come here. I think it's pretty relaxing. It's certainly not high stress.
You want more people here, but it's not crowded, which is
exactly.
I like it that it's not crowded.
Right. And just by nature of its size, when we sell our tours online, we have a maximum number of tickets, so it's never going to be crowded. I think there's a lot that's enjoyable about it. The tours they're interesting, they're educational, they're fun. The exhibits are beautiful.
We should touch on the artist books. That's a growing field for sure. There's a lot of book arts programs at universities that are they're looking at the tradition of bookbinding, but there's also artists that are using the book as a concept.
Right. Or as their medium. And they really are pushing the boundaries of, the things that we have on exhibit today. I think a lot of people would come in and say, I would never have thought of that to be a book. But by definition, it is a book.
It is and it isn't. I mean, well, I could call it an art book. I mean, it's a piece of work of art.
Or an object of art.
Yeah.
Just the creativity that is, still out there to make this, this thing that's been around for 2,000 years.
So yeah, you've got a broad definition of bookbinding. You're not sticking to the traditional, which is what I thought we were going to get here. There's a very traditional take, which is what the tour gives us,
right.
Incidentally.
Right.
But it seems to me that with this exhibition, you're broad-minded about the whole field.
There was a beginning, and there was, there's different ways of doing it, and we focus only on Western bookbinding. Where you didn't hear anything about Islamic bookbinding or, Byzantine bookbinding, because we can only do so much. Yeah. Doesn't mean we couldn't in the future. Right now, we just can't do that. We've got more than.
Well, you could do exhibitions of that kind.
We could, and that would be great to do. It would be a great thing to bring in here to see sort of the difference of the different bookbinding traditions. I think really part of the point of coming here and taking the tour is to open up your mind. A book, it doesn't have to just be paper between two covers with a spine. Mm-hmm. It can be more than that. And I think that's really part of the vision. You can understand the origins, you can understand the basic construct of it, but you can also then be introduced to things that are pushing the boundary. So that's why we want to be here. And to encourage people to get engaged with the book arts. One of our donors, she had a career and did completely different from that, but she got really, really involved in the book art. She took a class, and she just really enjoyed making the books, and she's done marbling, and she's probably made paper. She's done a lot of different things. She's very active in it. That's her hobby. Mm-hmm. And it opened this world up to her by taking that one class.
Was this a class connected to the museum?
It's not connected to us, no. It's the Center for the Book, and there's a couple of Center for the Books. There's one in San Francisco, there's one in New York, there's one in Minneapolis, and there's maybe more. And they do a lot of different kinds of classes, not just bookbinding. They do a lot of other things. So, but she got interested in it, and that's how she got interested in donating to us. It's fascinating in that you could get really fascinated by just the process, or you could get fascinated on what you could do if you're artistic, of creating things, like you see in the exhibit, where you're using the book as a medium, but you're making it your own sort of palette. You're doing what you want to do with it, and I think that's really interesting.
Well, there's two groups of people that you appeal to, as we mentioned: the antiquarian book lover, who loves the history of books and the book as object. And the other artisan, the people that actually love to get their hands on paper and leather and whatever else, string, whatever else you need to make a book. Right. Great. Well, perhaps you could give me your website.
www.bookbindersmuseum.org.
Very good. And before we leave, what else can a literary tourist or book lover do if they come here to San Francisco? Are there any other recommendations you might give them in addition to coming here?
The Center for the Book, if they're going to be here for more than just a weekend, definitely check it out. They have classes that they could take during the week. Okay. But actually I think Center for the Book is open 7 days a week. I think you could probably take something over the weekend.
Okay.
And they just have a wealth of things. So if you really want to, be hands-on, get your hands dirty, the Center for the Book is a really good place to go.
And of course, there's City Lights, which is
true. Pretty much, it's in all the tourist books. So people are going to go there.
And there's the Beat Museum right across the road from that.
Yeah.
If that interests you.
Right.
Anything else you can think of?
Well, there's Aryan Press.
They have a tour, don't they?
They do have a tour. I think they only do one a week, but it's a really good tour. They focus on printing because they publish. And they print, and so that is the focus of what they do, which is it's a really nice companion to us because we don't dwell on the printing.
No.
They dwell on the printing. You go into their bookbinding room. They do hand bind everything. They're not mass producing the bindings.
No,
they
it's
do
fine pressed. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not really the focus of their tour. So as a companion, we're great. There's a number of literary walking tours. There's a Dashiell Hammett tour. There's still a lot of great bookstores in San Francisco.
There's the Green Apple, I know that, and Dog Ear.
There's Omnivore, which is specialty for cookbooks.
Oh yes, I've heard of
Right,
that.
we've got Chronicle Books over here, just steps away from us.
Yeah, I've got to check that out. They make some really neat books, don't they?
Yeah.
Colorful and that's a bookstore, right?
It
They
is a
publish
bookstore.
books and it's a bookstore.
It is a bookstore. So there's really a lot here. Just trying to think.
There's some good theater here too.
Good theater, good food.
And a literary tourist always needs to have good food.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's a very walkable city.
Super. Well, thanks very much for the tour and for the talk.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
I've been speaking with Anita Engles, who is the executive director of the American Bookbinders Museum in San Francisco, California. Thanks again.
Thank you.